All right, well, for more on this story, I'm joined live now by Sukant Chandan, a spokesman for British civilians for peace in Libya and a freelance journalist live in London. Thank you for joining us today. So there's peace in Libya now. You must be happy.
There's no peace in Libya. Just Human Rights Watch, who's not exactly my favourite human rights organisation, has just said today in the newspapers that where is the inquiry about Abdel Fattah Yunus, who was the NTC's rebel military leader who was killed in Benghazi several months ago? There's no peace in Libya. There's been no running water in Tripoli, my sources tell me, and when there's salty water. There's dozens and dozens and scores of rebel factions, and all the media are being very clear that the actually internecine civil war between the rebel factions and the NTC is all about to blow up, and even the leadership of the NTC are stating this very clearly. So there's no peace in Libya. The war continues.
Well, as you say, there's no peace in Libya. The war continues. It's curious you say that because hot off the press here at RT, we've just heard that an NTC minister, a minister from the National Transitional Council, has formally asked NATO to continue their bombing campaigns for at least one more month. What does that mean to you? Why?
It's clear that there's deep divisions in the rebel council, the pro-NATO rebel council, and people like Mr. Jalil and Jabril are very keen that NATO intervene on their behalf against other factions which they don't support. But obviously the thing about Muammar Gaddafi is still a running story as well. And Muammar Gaddafi, the nature of his death has had more impact perhaps on people than most of his life. I know a lot of Arab friends who are very hostile to him, but the nature of his death, I mean, there's a very famous Chinese revolutionary who said that to die for the enemy is lighter than a feather, but to die against Western foreign policy is weightier than a mountain. And I think Gaddafi's death has been very weighty and has a deep, profound impact on the Arab psyche. Many Arabs are just absolutely disgusted by the nature of his death, and it's exposed the nature of the rebels as well.
Well, from one of our reports, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of our reports from our correspondent, RT's Ines Inawi, who's there on location, she spoke to one person who said that if indeed there was such overwhelming support for his death, there would be millions of people on the streets, not just several thousands. But if I may just branch out a little bit here, I understand that you're saying that the way that Gaddafi was treated in his death was distasteful, to say the least, and has had a big effect on the Arab psyche. But let's talk about the fact that Western leaders in recent years have certainly cozied up to Muammar Gaddafi when he was for quite some time persona non grata. Do you think Western leaders would have preferred to have seen Gaddafi stand trial at The Hague, or is it possible that they would have been worried about him exposing secrets? We spoke to a guest earlier who said that Gaddafi took some major political revelations to the grave.
On the one hand, and the most vindictive of Western leaders perhaps, that's Hillary Clinton, advocated his death anyway, days before Muammar Gaddafi was lynched. So that was a clear signal that went out from the empire. Secondly, on this issue of secrets, I don't think there are any particular great secrets. Everyone knows that Gaddafi had a rapprochement with the West in the last 7 to 10 years. Everyone knows that he collaborated in the rendition program against those factions which the West were using always against him, and which the West have again used now, particularly the Libyan Islamic fighting group.
I'm sorry, but you say there are no secrets here that people don't already know about. What about a recent story saying that Gaddafi helped to finance French President Nicolas Sarkozy's presidential campaign? Is that common knowledge?
But that wasn't a secret. The Saif al-Islam said that right at the beginning of the conflict, that they had the papers to prove that they had financed Sarkozy's election win. So that's not a secret. So I think what this kind of this speculative about secrets that he took to the grave is a way of really belittling the way that Libya managed to actually get reparations. The only African country that has managed to get reparations from the former colonial power, that's Italy. And really, third world nations have every right to have full diplomatic and mutual respectful relations with the West. So I think this whole story about taking secrets to the grave, I just don't think it's a story at all, personally.
All right, now I'm running very low on time here, but I must quickly ask you, very quickly that is, the Libyan population is still very heavily armed, even with kids playing with guns. What do you think can be done to disarm the nation? And forgive me, we're running very low on time here.
No problem. I think we need to have a central government that brings security and order, which they had under Gaddafi for 42 years. Look at Iraq. There was security and there was some semblance of safety for the people under Saddam Hussein. Now it's the Wild West. It's completely anarchistic. But I think the resistance will grow. And let's see what happens. NATO are stuck in Libya and they cannot roll on Syria because of Russia and China. So one can only hope, who has a sense of humanity, that things will improve for the Libyan people. And Maria Fonushina's report on Twitter, she just mentioned that the people she spoke to on her report on Russia today have been killed. So this is the state of affairs right now that the people of Libya are faced with.
Sukanta Chandan, a spokesman for the British civilians for peace in Libya. Many thanks.